how are you doing? I hope you're doing great. This is Luckyone over here. Jordan Peterson. In case you don't know who that is, how is that possible that we live on the same planet? The man, the legend himself, the mad lad himself, the philosopher, the higher intellectual human being. I look up to, as you can see, to Jordan Peterson. I listen to whatever he has to say, and I agree to most of the things that he says. I think the person is very interesting and a higher intellectual, which I always find those people more appealing and more attractive. You know, if the person can actually say something that makes you go like, "Ooh, wow, I never thought of that," right? So I really like what he thinks, but I just got my attention. I have found the video that says it's naive to think that Russia will lose the war, says Jordan Peterson. Something like that broke my heart. This is a higher intellectual, but I just don't want to believe that this is something that he said. And I wanted to review the video with you. I wanted to see what reaction am I going to have, and do I have anything to tell? Maybe I'm going to be the person telling Jordan Peterson that he's wrong about something. Wow. Okay, let's get to the video.
His analysis on the war in Ukraine. His response was as grave as it was startling. That's the world's most famous psychologist, who began by asking for his view on Vladimir Putin as a man.
Well, he's a lot more like everybody else than anyone thinks. You know, the notion that he's Hitler or Stalin, that's just foolish.
No! It's so hard. I look up to this person. It's so hard to critique. But still, is there anyone in the world still not seeing the correlation in between Hitler and Putin? I'm gonna just say something you think for yourself. Goes to war voluntarily, gets blinded by the gas attack, gets a heavy injury in the leg, got a bullet into the leg. That was a very heavy injury, got him limping for an indefinite period of time. Then comes back to his country and finds out the country has been betrayed. Then he's very passionate. He's a patriot of his country. He's very passionate to give back that purity of his people, to give back the former power of that country. He's very passionate patriot. And then eventually, when he understands that there's nothing that he can do better to the country, he commits suicide. Now, you know I'm talking about Hitler, right? But it's the same story. It's like this, the history is insinuating what is going to happen. It's the same story of Putin. If you're just gonna Google that, fact check that. Heavily injured into the leg. Fact check that, please. Checked. Voluntarily going to war. Checked. Coming back to his country and finding out it's going into pieces back in 1991, the USSR. Check. The correlation is the same. Do I have to tell you about the third wave, the experiment, or maybe the Third Reich? The experiment of the teacher back in 1967. I think you know what that is. In case you don't know, you can follow the link and just watch the video. The idea of the Third Reich is telling the people that everything that we're doing, we just want the purity of our people. We want to get it back. We want that power back. We are what Nazi Germany is saying. We are better than other people just because we are Germans. That's the idea of Nazism. When you're coming back to Russia, he is saying we are trying to get back the purity of our people. That's literally what he says. The purity of our people. We want to have the former power. So what he thinks and what he lives in is still the USSR. He thinks Ukraine is not a different country. He thinks that the part of his lands, and he should be the one making decisions about this. It's not, for those who still think it's about the NATO, it's not. Okay. Oh, and the other one idea, the Third Reich, do you remember I told you? If you disagree with my opinion that you're going to jail, this is what was happening in Nazi Germany. This is something that, is happening in Russia right now. If you disagree to whatever the media says, because there's only one source of information. Can you believe it? Having one source of information. Like, people have the internet, but they don't want to use it because there's so much media just putting down the idea into their brain that, oh, we are right. We're coming back with the purity of our country. What are we doing in Ukraine? Oh, we're saving whoever speaks Russian because we want that purity of our country, purity of our people. That is the idea of Nazism. And it's just unbelievable that Jordan doesn't see it. How is that possible? I'm so frustrated.
I don't see any evidence for that at all. I mean, first of all, Hitler and Stalin were very singular types, and there's a bit of Hitler and Stalin in everyone. So
the saying that Hitler and Stalin are singular types, that is very true. Because what Stalin hasn't been doing that Hitler has been doing to its own people. Sending people just like pieces of meat to war without the proper weapons, without the proper fighting education, that happened. I mean, the correlation to this, something like this, I can't agree. But how does he disagree? Is the fact that Putin is Hitler.
Truth in that. Maybe there's more in the typical Russian leader
A bit of
than
Hitler
normal.
in everyone? Really?
There's
Yeah.
more than a bit.
Really?
I think there is. It's just we're fighting inside of us. We're fighting this monster basically inside of us. Everyone has those really, really bad thoughts, right? But we're able to fight them. Hitler wasn't able to fight them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, well, why would have Nazism spread the way it did? You know, people think, well, that's all top down. It's not top down.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a part of people that are all these people who informed on Kate Birbelsing.
Well, didn't Goebbels say that the way to get vast numbers of people to go along with what you want to do is to terrify them?
Yeah, well, that
yeah,
you
You
could do
hold
that.
That's-
a grip
that's
of
why.
terror over them.
Oh, yeah.
Again, that's what's happening in Russia. You're terrorizing. People are being afraid of saying what they think about the war, and they're not even able to say war. You know, it's just like in the book at 1984. There are different, Navayas. There's a new language for saying the things. It's now the special operation. You're not allowed to say war. If you say war, you go to jail for 10 to 12 years.
And in a way, that's what Putin's now doing with the Russian people, where he's going back now into a position of they're all trying to get us, they want to attack us, they want to take us over. He's terrifying his people to rally support for what at the moment is a conflict he has started, which is not going the way he assumed.
Well, the most, what would you say, the wisest commentators on totalitarian states, like Solzhenitsyn, and many psychological commentators.
It's funny how other people say Solzhenitsyn. It's the same thing. It's just the way he says that. Solzhenitsyn.
There's Jung was a good example of that. Made a very straightforward case that you can't have a totalitarian state unless every single person is willing to lie about everything all the time.
You can say the Russians are so stupid that they're not going for rallies, right? They're not protesting against Putin. It's not stupidity. People were put down into the situation where everything that they think of is, where do I get food? 40% of people are living under the line of poverty. It's poverty. Poverty is a huge problem in Russia. And when people are having one thought, where do I find food, or where do I find water, or how am I going to live? Just look at the major part. What do you know about Russia? St. Petersburg, Moscow, that's everything that you know? No, it's a huge country. 75% of it is not for living. It's just the jungle, the woods, the forests, basically. But still, the percentage of the land that is for living, the conditions of living are horrible. They are terrific. And when people, everything that they're thinking about is that, ooh, I can get a little bit of money. Why is mobilization is going through okay, people are actually voluntarily going to war, even though they know they're not fighting for any idea, and they know they're going to die, and they know they're not going to have proper weapons. They're going to have to put the tampons into the wounds. They know all of those things, and still they go. Why? Because of money. People of poverty think that 100,000 ruble, which is like this amount of dollars, this is going to save their life. This is going. Can you imagine that? It's programming the brain. It's programming the brain. This is what's done basically to the people. That is why they're willing to lie to themselves, to their family, to everyone who's there. They're willing to lie because, first of all, they don't want to admit it's true, just like the Nazi Germany. I mean, to admit that their country is attacking a different country. The second of all, they have their own problems. Like looking for food, for example.
And you can think about that as top down because the leaders lie too. And they also enforce punishments if you don't lie. But then you can also think about it. The totalitarian spirit is replicated at every level of the society. And so in a truly totalitarian state, husbands lie to their wives and parents lie to their children.
Lie to their children,
the totalitarian state is actually the grip of the lie. And so, and people will certainly go along with that. I mean we're seeing that emerge here with cancel culture. It's like lie or else.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, well.
And the Russian people will be bombarded all the time with state media propaganda and will be buying into a lot of what Putin is saying.
I don't know how is that possible, but I haven't been put into that position. Maybe If since my childhood, for like 22 or maybe 24 years, people are telling me the same thing over and over again, there's a very high percentage that I would definitely believe it. And when you're trying to break that stigma for me, saying, oh, no, what you thought is not real, of course I am going to be angry about that. That's what's happening to Russians, the canceling, like, oh, wait. For 24/7, I'm hearing this from my propaganda. I mean, it's not propaganda for them. I'm hearing this from my TV channels, and now you're telling me that it's a totally different thing. I don't want to believe it because I don't want to ask questions. That's what's happening in the totalitarian state. That's very true. I do agree with that.
Yeah.
How does this war end, do you think?
Oh my God. Please say something good.
We're going to find out this winter. Well, I know what I would do in his shoes.
Don't say about the gas.
I'd wait till the first cold snap and shut off the taps.
Oh,
Well,
I cannot not admit that this is what's going to happen, because that's a great leverage of pressure on Europe, right? Just closing the taps. Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen.
Of course he's going to do that.
He's got the control over the energy.
Of course he's going to do that. He's already warned the West with his insistence that maintenance problems were necessary and the pipelines had
Do
to
you
be
think
shut
he will
down.
use a nuclear weapon?
If necessary, he'll use a tactical battlefield weapon.
I don't want to believe it's true. I'm going to say it like this.
Even
Yes.
if it starts World War III?
It won't, probably.
Why? Because we wouldn't respond?
What's in it for us?
If you let him do it and get away with it, where does that end? Then you are into a hit
Well-
analogy.
He's probably going to speak about the recession for America, right? Oh my God.
Look, there's a lot. You can get yourself in a situation, no problem, where there's no good outcome. We're trying to do that right now on every front we can possibly imagine. We can easily get ourselves in a situation where it's hell this way and hell that way. That's highly probable.
Well, should the Ukrainians give the Russians anything? When I was over there recently interviewing President Zelensky, what I was struck by was everybody I met in Kyiv, the capital city, were utterly resolute.
I like the way that he actually says Kyiv, right? The way that the Ukrainian spelling of the city. He doesn't say Kyiv. He says Kyiv.
Don't give them an inch of our land.
Yeah? Well,
Yeah.
I can't speak to that.
That's how we feel. Yeah. No inch of land. Because if you think of that, and back in 2014, we're like, okay, you can have this, but don't touch anything else. And they came back again.
The preconditions for peace might be. But I do know that naive notions that the Russians are going to lose somehow, or that we're going to win, I just don't understand. I don't understand that. Well, what do you mean we're going to win? What are we going to win here exactly?
Well, I guess
Well, the victory looks like this. Ukrainians have their own lands. Russian troops are getting back. And this idiot goes to Gog's court. That's what's going to happen, right? Am I too naive to believe that's going to happen? Probably.
victory would be that the Russians retreated from Ukraine.
With Ukraine in ruins.
Right.
Well,
With large
okay,
parts of
fine.
it.
That's a hell of a victory. Like, I think Putin could manage that because I think he could tell his people, and I think they might buy it. It's like, we accomplished our objective. We devastated Ukraine and we kept it out of the hands of the West. And that's not great. It's not what we had hoped for, but it's better than the alternative. And I think they would buy that. And I think when Putin went into Ukraine, I thought a bunch of things, which I made a YouTube video about that. People criticized like mad. I thought, okay, well, what's happening here? Oh, I see. His end game for failure is that Ukraine is left in a smoking ruin. Oh, that's a victory. So then he can lose with impunity.
Right.
So how can we win?
He's saying the win for Putin is going to be that he's going to destroy Ukraine, just withdraw the army. Is that what he actually wants? I don't think so. He was saying, oh, I don't want you to be a part of NATO. And we were like, can we make our own decisions? He's like, no, getting with war. And then Zelensky's like, okay, you don't want us to be a part of NATO. It's fine. We're not going to be. And Putin's like, we're way beyond that point. What the fuck do you want?
We can't win against Vladimir Putin anyways, because you cannot win against someone you cannot say no to.
What do
Period.
you mean?
And we can't say no to Putin because we sold our soul for his oil and gas. And we did that to elevate our moral stature in relationship to saving the planet. And so here we are,
Yeah.
facing a very dire winter, hoisted on the petard of our own foolishness and moral presumption. We're saving the planet. We'll see. I don't think so. It doesn't look like it to me. And this is the most catastrophic issue here. Assuming that we're facing an environmental crisis of planetary proportions, which is not something I buy, by the way, assuming we are.
Well, he's right now talking about the oil. I would say that the crisis is going to come from crops. Because Ukraine, again, is a big exporter of crops. And many people are just going to starve to death because of this war in small countries like Somalia, for example.
And I would imagine that you would put in place measures that would ameliorate that problem instead of exacerbating it. But all the measures you're putting in place are actually making the environmental problem worse. So how is that even vaguely acceptable? And I look at that and I think, oh, I see. It's just like George Orwell said about middle-class socialists 50 years ago. It's not that you love the planet. It's that
you hate the people.
So well, have at her, boys and girls. And we'll see what happens this winter. And it's very terrifying to me.
It is.
Especially here, because your energy prices have gone way out of control, and that's going to hurt a lot of poor people, and certainly around the world as well. The World Bank already estimated that we've put 350 million people into what they call food insecurity. 350 million. That's 3 times as many as the communists managed to kill. Maybe we can manage that in a winter. But the planet has too many people on it anyway, so, that's just poor people.
I think he's insinuating, he's not saying that, he's not being serious about that. I mean, he is being serious about what's going to happen, but he's not being serious by saying that in a very playful way, like, 350 million died. He's very empathetic. So I don't think he's actually being serious about that. Jordan, I cannot agree. I look up to you. You are the person that I actually idolized, and there are so many things that I actually understood by watching your videos, but still saying that it's a lose-lose situation, maybe I'm naive, I don't know, but I think it's not true. I think there is a way that Ukraine can actually push out the Russian army, and they're actually going to withdraw. We're not going to have the war there, and then the war is going to be won, and then we're going to think what to do with all those people, the propagandists and the Putin. I know it's very naive to think, but I think this is what's going to happen. I cannot believe that the whole world is going to say, it's all good. You attack the other country, but it's all good, and then shake hands with Putin. I can't believe that something like that is going to happen. That are my thoughts on what Jordan Peterson said. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you also like it. Maybe you know something new. Maybe you disagree with me or him, so write it down in the comments. Leave a comment down below. Like, subscribe. You already know the game. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to see you in the next one. Bye!